We'll do a review in Likutei Sichos. This is in Chelek Beis, and this is the second part in the Sicha for Shavuos. And we're learning this Leilu Nishmas Levi Yitzchok, Harav Levi Yitzchok ben Chaim Tzvi, Tei Nishmos Yitzrura B'Tzrera Chaim. In this Sicha, in the starting with Ois Hey, the Rebbe talks about the Maila of Shavuos over the other Yomim Tovim, more than Sukkot and Pesach, and the fact that it's the middle, it has a greater advantage. It's actually the source. The Rebbe will also talk about the fact that it's mostly related to Torah and how Torah has an advantage over mitzvahs. The Rebbe will also explain the unique level which Torah is mamshich, as we'll see in the Sicha, and we'll go step by step. Oishei, as state in Zohar, it states in the Zohar, as Chag hashavuos is hecher von alle Yomim Tovim, that the Yom Tov Shavuos is higher than all Yomim Tovim. And was der Far, and that's why is inmitten zwischen Pesach and Sukkot. In between Pesach and Sukkot, the Yom Tov starts. The first Yom Tov is Pesach from the shoulder Shulgolim, and then the last Yom Tov is Sukkot, and Shavuos is in between Pesach and Sukkot. And we know that the in between is the highest point of all of the Tuval, and is Emtseiso de Kula, because he's in the middle of it all, in the middle of Pesach and Sukkot. You have Shavuos, because Torah is the Nekuda Hatichoina from Alin Yonim. Shavuos, which is the idea of Torah, Torah was given then. That's the central point of all matters. And that's why it comes in between Pesach and Sukkot, because that's the central point. Now, one may ask, if Shavuos is take more greater, higher than Pesach and Sukkot, how come Shavuos is only one day and the other ones have 7 days and there are 8 days? So the Rebbe says, Fakert, the fact that it has one day represents the Goy Echad Ba'oretz, to bring down the oneness of Hashem into the world. That's the level of one. That's not a chisoron, that it's not multiple, but it's actually an advantage. Dos was Shavuos is nit mer ve'ein tog. The fact that Shavuos is only one day. Nit vi Pesach or Sukkot welche seine 7 und 8, unlike Pesach and Sukkot, which are 7 or 8 days, is nit weil der Yom Tov is a kleinerer. It does not because the Yom Tov of Shavuos is smaller, lesser. Not adrabah, but on the contrary, the Yom Echad von Chag HaShavuos, the one day that Shavuos is, to toiv dem inyan, that accomplishes the idea von umik amcho ki Yisrael goy echad ba'aretz, who is like your people, who is one nation in the world, the level of one. Das is wie früher gesagt, this is as the Rebbe had spoken previously in the Sicha, as amitis inyan ha'agdus is in Torah, shenitna b'chodesh hashlishi davke, that the true level of unity is in Torah, that it was given in the 3rd month, and you have the Agdus of Torah, as the Rebbe discussed earlier. And the Rebbe is going to go now into explaining what is the advantage of the middle. The Zohar says that Shavuos is the middle. What is the advantage of the middle? First off, a middle points to an important part, and the middle is also the source of the two sides. But in Kavahoem Tzoyi is einen Faran zwei Meilos. In the middle line, there are 2 advantages. Aleph, number 1, Kavahoem Tzoyi is meshubach from the andere zwei kavim. The middle line is more praiseworthy, is more important than the other two lines. Azoivi mir gefinnen in Gemara, like you find in the Gemara, that Rab be'emtza, godel mi minle v'kotl mismoilei. When they're going on the road, the rabbi, he goes in the middle, and on his right is the older of the students, and on the left is the smaller of the students. So basically, the middle is where it's at. That's the important. That's where the Rav is, and the two sides are secondary. So the fact that Shavuos is the middle, that makes it central, and the other sides are secondary to the center. So Shavuos is the main. That's one point. There's another point about the middle one, that from the middle one comes the other one's base. Kavhem Tsoy, the other point is that the middle line is their shoydish of ala kavim. That's the root for all the lines. Varum. Kavhem Tsoy oila ad hakeser. The middle line goes up all the ways up to keser, which is shoydish umoker l'chol hasvirus, which is the root and the source of all the svirus. The svirus in Atzilus, they all come from Keser. But what goes up to Keser is the middle line. So Shavuos has both of these advantages. First, it's the middle, and that it goes up higher. Azoy seinen oich in dem emtzoi for Chag Shavuos. Likewise, in this middle of Chag Shavuos, Faram Beida Milos, you have both advantages. Aleph, number one, Chag Shavuos is Hecher for andere Yom Tovim. Festival of Shavuos is higher than the other Yom Tovim. Just like the middle is higher, so it is a higher level. But it is also the source of the other Yom Tovim. Shavuos is gegeben geworden the Torah. On Shavuos, the Torah was given. In welcher es stehen alle me'adim, in which all the holidays are written. So it means they all come from Shavuos, because the other holidays come from Matan Torah, which was given on Shavuos. So they come from Shavuos. So these are the two advantages in Shavuos over Pesach and Sukkot. Begeret Frier, and also, as we said before, the main aspect of Shavuos, we got the Torah has the mitzvahs, but the main aspect of Shavuos is Torah. The Ikir Inyan for Chag Shavuos, the main aspect of Shavuos is Torah. The Meile von Limud HaTorah of Kiyum HaMitzvahs is in Beidin Yonim Hanal. So also the advantage of Torah studies over the observance of mitzvahs is in both areas. Like we said before, Aleph, mitzvahs Talmud Torah is greater from alle mitzvahs. The mitzvah to study Torah is greater than all the mitzvahs, K'maimer Azal, as the sages of blessed memory say, the Talmud Torah keneged kulam. Study of Torah corresponds to all the mitzvahs. So it's more meshubach, it's much greater. The mitzvah of learning Torah is greater than mitzvahs. But number two, Talmud Torah is the shoydish was bringt alle mitzvahs. Talmud Torah is the root that brings all the mitzvahs, because how do you know what to do the mitzvahs? Because it says in the Torah. And when you study, you know how to do the mitzvahs. K'maimer Azal, as our sages of blessed memory say, Godel Talmud shemeveli demaisa, that the greatness of study is that it brings to action. That's why Torah is greater, because first of all, it leads to the other mitzvahs. You learn about the other mitzvahs in Torah. And number one, that Torah by definition is higher, is Talmud Torah is greater than everything. Zayin. Why is that so? Why is Torah higher than mitzvahs? Because Torah is intellect, and mitzvahs are limbs. The intellect is higher than the limbs, and the intellect leads and directs all the limbs. The Zay, looks like the declaring in them is the explanation in these two areas that Torah is greater than mitzvahs. Tariag mitzvahs, the 600 mitzvahs, Zayin and Keneged Tariag Ivarim. They correspond to the 613 limbs. Those are the 613 mitzvahs. Mitzvahs are basically sort of limbs. The 613 are divided in the Ramach mitzvahs asay, 248 positive mitzvahs, and that is Keneged, corresponding to the Reish Mem Ches Evarim, to the 248 limbs of the person. Unshasa and 365 mitzvahs loisasa, which are the prohibition. Keneged Shin Samachay Gidin next correspond to the 365 sinews within the body. So it's basically the body. So mitzvahs are body, and Torah is moichin. Torah is intellect. On Punkt wie de Meile von moichin auf alle Vorim is hat zwei Indike. Just like the advantage from the intellect over all other limbs is two-faced. Number one, der Chayes von Moichin is hecher von dem Chayes was in alle Ibrike Vorim. The vitality from the Moichin is higher than the vitality that is in all other limbs. So by definition, the level of vitality in the Moichin is higher. But number two, in Moich is kolul euch der Chayes was in alle Ivarim. In the brain, it also included the energy which is in all the limbs. And the moyach is a root for them. So these two aspects is also Torah versus mitzvahs. Azoy is euch the Meile von Torah of the andere mitzvahs, the advantage of Torah and over mitzvahs. We even declared, I said before, one, the mitzvah of Talmud Torah is connected kulam is greater, and the other mitzvahs, Godel Talmud Shemei the Maisa brings to Maisa. And now the Rebbe wants to say in Oisches that there is even a higher level in Torah that Torah reaches all the ways up to. Not only does it include all the mitzvahs, greater than the mitzvahs, and it's the root for the mitzvahs, but it's also goes all the ways to the essence of Keser, to the highest level within Keser, to the level of Atik. Nocha Maile is doing Kav. I'm sorry. There is another advantage when we talk about the middle line, which is Shavuos, the middle between Pesach and Sukkot. Sha'oile ad pnimius ve'atzmus haKeser, that it goes up all the ways to the inner and the essence of Keser. Hecher from Sheiresh Moker HaSfiris Shebekeser. That's even higher than the root and source of the Sfiris in Keser. The root and the source of Sfiris in Keser, that's in Arich, that's Chitzonius HaKeser. This, Kavah Tzoi, goes in the Pnimis Atzma Keser into Atik. I'm using the words there, but it doesn't say Atik and Arich, but I'm using this Pnimis HaKeser and higher than the Moker of Sfiris Shebekeser. Azoy is oich in Torah. Same thing is in Torah. As oiser der Monta Miles, besides the mentioned advantages, was sie bringt zu Maisa mitzvahs. That first of all, Torah brings to the act of mitzvahs, Kodl Talmud Shvev the Maisa, und is gressa von alle mitzvahs, great mitzvahs. But das seinen Miles in mitzvahs Talmud Torah. That's advantage in the mitzvahs Talmud Torah. Mitzvahs Talmud Torah is greater than the older mitzvahs. But then there is the mitzvah, the greatness which is in Torah itself. Zoch faran, amayla in Torah mitzad atzma. There's also advantage in Torah on its own, not the fact that it's a mitzvah. Vazi is chachmosei shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Torah is the wisdom of Hashem. Ve'eye etzlei Amun, I was been by Hashem. The Torah was sort of Hashem's trained. So there was very connected to Hashem, that is level of Torah. So Torah, just by definition, is a very lofty and a very great thing, which is the connection that Torah has with Hashem. Was das ist euch der emeser Inyan von Limud HaTorah Lishma. This is also the true idea from learning Torah Lishma. Not because of learning Torah so you know what to do, and not because Torah is important, but to learn Torah for the sake that this is the Eibishter's wisdom. This is the Chachmos Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Kipshat Haloshen. As the meaning of the language, Lishmo, L'Shem HaTorah Atzma, for the purpose of the Torah itself. Afilu nit zu lidvisim v'zich tefillin, even not to learn Torah to know how to conduct yourself, to learn, to know the halachas. Oich nit zu libki mitzvahs limud HaTorah, also not so that you fulfill the mitzvah of studying Torah. Nor lernen Torah to leave Torah alone, but rather to study Torah just for Torah itself. Not because it teaches you what to do, and also not to fulfill a mitzvah by studying Torah, but just to get the opportunity to study Torah to connect with Hashem. And the Rebbe brings an example of it, of a child who is just hugging his father for no other purpose than to hug his father. Derech mashal. By way of example, Akin v'sot hatzait nit gizan zayin foter. If a child hasn't seen his father for a while, rufteri, so he calls him. Be'eser der hezetim, and when he sees him, chapter sich harum mit zayin foter der melech. So he grabs and he takes hold of his father, the king, und halst und kusht him, and he embraces him, kisses him. Was das is need to lieb. Why does he do that? It's not for a purpose that there's no benefit for it. Was ervet von ihm haben that he's going to have from his father, the king. Nor to lieb the father alone is because of his father alone. That's his expression of his love to hug his father, just for being his father. Azoy is oich the same idea, we have to apply this to a yid. When nor hot aleti kemenut, whenever he has an empty moment, was ken arayin chapen, as Aviv HaMelech durch Torah, which he can grab and embrace his father, the king, through Torah. K'maimer Razal, as the saying of our sages' blessed memory, they say, when you learn Torah, oisi atem loichim, you take me. So you're taking Hashem when you're learning Torah. So whenever you have an opportunity, trachten nit b'shas meise wegen kein Zach. He's not thinking at the time about anything. Nit wegen leidas hamaitze, not in order to know what to do. Nit wegen kiyum mitzvahs Talmud Torah, not to be fulfilling the mitzvah of studying Torah. Chapt sich on in Torah alone. He just grabs hold of Torah itself. Because Torah and Hashem is one, and you want to hug your father, you want to hug Kuchabrichu through the Torah. That's why you get a opportunity, you grab hold and you hug your father by learning Torah. Not for knowing what to do, not to fulfill the mitzvah of Talmud Torah, not for those greatness, but just simply to be able to hug and connect to your father, to Hashem. And now this level that we're talking about, that there's a newer level in Limud HaTorah, not just for obligation, will explain to us a Gemara, which seemingly is not so understood about Hillel, who was very poor, and Abelazar ben Charasim, who were very rich. and they will sort of make the rich and the poor guilty because they learned Torah despite being poor. Hillel, Rabbi Lezer, Rabbi Chaim learned Torah despite being rich, so no excuses. But what do we need them as example? I mean, these are uh, if they have to learn Torah, they have to learn Torah. So why? What is added? Let's look inside. Then we'll explain. Test. Like them that man verstehen was steht in Gemara. Like this will also understand that which is stated in the Gemara. It says Hillel mechayev aniyim, but Avelozim and Charasim mechayev ashirim. Hillel will make the poor people. He will make them guilty when they will excuse themselves for not learning Torah because they were poor, and Hillel makes them guilty because Hillel was very poor and still he learned Torah. And the same thing in Rabbi Lezer ben Charasim, the Gemara says, he will make the wealthy people guilty because they won't be able to argue, well, you're too busy to running our businesses. We didn't have time to learn Torah, but he would make them guilty because he was very wealthy, and yet he studied Torah. It says, if the poor and the wealthy will come and they'll argue, they didn't learn because they were troubled, they were occupied. But so they will bring them proof from Hillel and Rabbi Lezer and Charsum who learned Torah despite the fact that they were poor and they were wealthy. Why do we need evidence to make them guilty from Hillel and Rabbi Lezer and Charsum? Employed Memonashach would seem either way. Das is a falsche Verentferung. If this is a false excuse, and really they had time to study Torah, darf man doch nicht ankommen zu Hillel und Rabbi Lezer ben Charsum. So we don't need to come on to prove that you have to learn Torah because of Hillel and Rabbi Lezer ben Charsum. They themselves, because you had time, you didn't utilize it. This is a very clear instruction. You should study it in Torah day and night. Is given, even if there was one while, that he was able to study, he didn't study. That included that the one that the pasuk says he has shamed Hashem's word, etc., which means if he had opportunity to learn Torah, didn't learn Torah, he's shaming Hashem's word. So we don't need them; they're violating a pasuk. On the other hand, if you're going to say if it's true they didn't have the time, I've learned to study. How could you make them guilty? Is the charaya derfun? So this shows us that sometimes you may not be guilty because you covered the rules, that you did what you can, but you still could be guilty for not going beyond more than your obligation. Is the charaya derfun? As is da meglichkeit was mitzad that din. There's a possibility that if strictly from the law, mitzad ki mitzvahs Talmud Torah, to fulfill the mitzvah of study Torah, is man potter, you'll be exempt. Und von deswegen, and yet, to leave them kochen geschmack darf sein in Torah, because of that fervor and that taste that was darf sein in Torah, that needs to be in Torah. Hashem and the Torah is one. Torah chapnen sich zu der Torah. Then you grab to the Torah eich ven al pidin is man potter. Even if according to Allah you're potter, but because of your love to Torah, you grasp it, grab it, and that is something that Hillel and Rabbi Lezer ben Charsum will make you guilty, because it's talking about a situation where you did what you have to, but that extra level of love of Torah to learn it, even when you're exempt, to utilize it and to learn Torah, that we learn from Hillel and Rabbi Lezer ben Charsum. So this idea that there is no real limit, uh, even when you are exempt, you still connect with Torah because of the mitzvah may have limitations, but Torah itself has no limitation. That's why Torah is referred to as emes, because truth has no limitation. Yud. Und das ist euch der Tam. This is also the reason was Torah wird angerufen emes. But Torah is called truth. K'maymer Razal, as the saying of our sages of blessed memory, ein emes ela Torah, that there is nothing true, but Torah is true. Why is Torah emes? Der Inyan von emes is was es hot nit ken hefsek. The idea of truth is that it has no interruption, no stop. Das was hot a hefsek is nit emes. Something which has an interruption is not truth. Ki yidu, as it's known, beinyan nechoris hamechazvim. You have those rivers that once in 7 years they dry out. So those waters would not be fit for the Parah Aduma, where the Torah says Mayim Chayim. Because even when they are alive, if they're not all the time, they dry out. So when they're alive, they're not alive either. So truth has to, in truth, to have true living water, it needs to be consistently true. Emes is tikkun la'ad. If you have emes, then it is forever. And that's why the rivers that machazvim cannot qualify for mayim chayim. And the same thing, Torah doesn't really have any limitation. But this is oich merumas in the Oisius Aleph Memsov. This idea that there is no interruption is actually hinted in the letters of the word emes, truth, which is an Aleph and a Mem and a Sof. We are stated in Yerushalmi, as stated in Yerushalmi, as Aleph is Tchilas Oisius, Aleph is the first letter, Mem Emtsois, Mem is the middle letter, and Tov is Sofa is the end of the letters. And that inyan von emes is, and the idea of truth is, as umetu, and that always, in beim onheib, in the beginning, in mitten, in the middle, and Sof is a gleich, it's equal. That's why it has the letters Aleph, Mem, Sof. Und der Riber wird Teure angerufen emes, and that's why Teure is called truth. Weil sie hat nicht keine Hagbolis. Teure has no limitation. Mitzvahs seinen begrenzt. The mitzvahs are limited in Zeit und Ort, in time and space. Euch mitzvahs Talmud Torah, even the Torah story as a mitzvah, hat die Hagbolis also has limitation. The mitzvah of Talmud Torah. Hagbolis hazman. There is limitation in time, which means die welche seinen Torah din zeire Geschäft nalpi Torah, those who are occupied in their business according to the Torah that gives them the right. Seine Potterfulim with that Torah in their sight, when sie Muslim Paresik. So they are exempt from studying Torah during the time that they have the need for their business. So there is a time limit. There's an exemption. There's time when you don't have a mitzvah of studying Torah. Ves wird declared the proti dinim from them as the details of the halachas is explained in Shulchan Aruch Hilchos Talmud Torah, in the Shulchan Aruch Hilchos Talmud Torah. It also has a Mahamokah. It has limitation in space. Some places you're not allowed to learn Torah. That places that are dirty with tinef, then you're not allowed to learn. But Torah lane, that's the mitzvah of Torah. Torah by itself, hot keine hagbolos, it has no limitation. Nit fun zman und nit fun mokem. Not from time and not from place. We're stating Gemara. The Gemara says, "La'oin soy shiny." Somebody sometimes learns against his will, even though you don't have to, but not if you can't help it. The point here is Torah itself has a limitation. That's why it's called emes, called true. What does this mean for us? Means for us that we have to always sit and learn Torah. Yud Aleph. Benegay as it pertains practically. And darf halt the name learn Torah. You need to hold by continuous learning Torah. Nicht lernen zu livietze sein von Shulchan Aruch. Not to study to fulfill for the Shulchan Aruch, for the code of law. Und soif kol soif bringt us zu machen a cheshbon. And at the end, if you learn that way, it brings you to a calculation as al pi Shulchan Aruch, that according to Shulchan Aruch, can the yetze sein mit Perek Echad Shachris or Perek Echad Arvis. He can fulfill his obligation, one chapter in the morning and one chapter in the evening. Warum äußert dem, was man darf wissen, sie sein Cheshbon Haltak äußert Pil Shulchan Aruch. Besides the fact, you need to really know, does his calculations really fit according to Shulchan Aruch? Besides that, could be making a mistake. Warum es kann sein, as hat noch mehrere Zeit, that he does have more time. And therefore, also according to Shulchan Aruch, he has to learn more. We're saying here he has to learn regardless, even if he doesn't have to learn according to Shulchan Aruch. His own evaluation, he may actually make a mistake. But besides that, even if he's right, even if it's as he holds, is over mit sadem geschmack und kochen Torah, because of the taste, the joy, the fervor in Torah, darf man halten in lernen. You have to keep on studying. Also, don't make any calculation as der Godel hamaise, as Godel talmid doch leides hamaise. So that the reason why Torah is great because you need to know the action. So he makes a consideration that is be'ez as that kumet sima shaila, when at the time that a question will be brought to him. But as the Chabek and he'll sit down, und durch dem din von dem Mocker, he is going to go through the law, go to the source, in the Chumash, with the Gemara and alle Rishonim and Achronim, with the earlier ones and the later ones, und Achronim, bis the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch, till the code of law of the Alter Rebbe. Aber v'shas, as lemaise, he says, nit nigeya, but if it's not important, practically learned it. So he doesn't learn. So the Darfur Mavis, no, that's not right. As the Ikir Inyan from Torah is Torah to lib Torah. The main aspect of Torah is for the purpose of Torah. And when Darf halten in ein lernen, you need to keep on learning continuously. Torah, always learning Torah. Yadarega every instant. On Yagdil Torah v'yadir, to increase Torah and make it bigger. So always keep on learning without any considerations, without needing it for practical, just to learn Torah for the sake of Torah itself. So because we just said that Torah in itself really has no limits, the Rebbe explains with this also the halacha that Talmud Torah is unique, that it's a mitzvah for a father to teach his son Torah. There's no mitzvah of a father to do his young son under bar mitzvah to teach him any of the other mitzvahs. It's chinuch, but not a mitzvah of the Torah. But Talmud Torah, it's a mitzvah for the father to teach his son Torah. You base. Like them almen that man verstehen, according to all this, will also understand the mechiluk zwischen Torah and mitzvahs lagabe ketanim, the difference between Torah and mitzvahs as it pertains to minors. For alle mitzvahs eine ketanim potter, all mitzvahs, minors are exempt. Now, the father has to train his child. That's a mitzvah from education for the father. There is a mitzvah because of the obligation to educate, to teach him mitzvahs, to do mitzvahs. But the mitzvah is nor medivrei sofrim. The mitzvah to educate is mit Rabbanon. And the mitzvah is from Vater, not from Kotten. The mitzvah, the father needs to educate, but it's not a mitzvah for the child to be learning or to be doing that mitzvah. But with regards to Torah, it says mitzvahs as same in Torah. The positive mitzvah of the Torah is Allah Av Lamed is B'nai Hakot Torah. A father should teach his young son Torah. The Torah, the father has to teach the young son. As he do achiv oich oifen ben, and then there's also an obligation on this son, as it is chayiv lilmei das asme kishayakir, that when he grows up and he recognizes the language of the Alter Rebbe, Shulchan Aruch, when he recognizes he should mitzvah to learn by himself. So you see, learning Torah is an obligation on the son himself, even before bar mitzvah. And the father has a Torah obligation to teach him. Why is that difference? The time of them, the reason of this. Mitzvahs einen b'hagbola. Mitzvahs have a limitation, so a minor is not obligated. But Torah vaziz b'ligvul, Torah which is limitless, is by all Yidden, by all Yidden, even the minor. Which also explains why by Matan Torah the Eibishter wanted the guarantee from the children. Yud Beis. Like them, Almen that Merech verstehen, Yud Gimel. Der Far hat man bei Matan Torah gefordert the Arves from Bonim. That's why by Matan Torah they needed, it was demanded the guarantee from the sons to guarantee the Torah. By the mitzvahs and its tavu b'morah, hat man kein Arves nicht gedarft. There were mitzvahs before Matan Torah. The Eibishter gave them in Morah, Kasher Tzivcha Hashem Lekecha, in Morah hat man kein Arves, they didn't need guarantees. Und Davke bei Matan Torah hat man gefordert Arves, but it's specifically, when the Torah was given, there was demanded some guarantee. Why is that? Like them wird sein verstandig, according to this we understand. Der Iker Inyan von Matan Torah is nicht Nesinas HaMitzvahs. The main part of Matan Torah is not that Matan Torah gave the mitzvahs. No Nesinas HaTorah, the Torah was given. But Ir Chiyuv, that obligation is Oich of Ktanim, also on minors. Ubibal as Oich Ktanim. Mitzvahs only Gedolim, so you don't need. But here, Torah is also for minors because there is no limit. Ubibal as Oich Ktanim zayin b'chuy b'limud Torah. And since they are also obligated in study of Torah, steht the Meile in Zei Davkes. Therefore, the advantage of Torah is actually in them, in the minors. As the Medrash concludes over there, that he needed them to guarantee because it's from the mouth of the young children and the nursing that you have founded the Torah. The Torah is based because of the Ketanim, because that's where the main Torah is. That's the specialty of Matan Torah, the giving of the Torah itself, without a limit. Yudalit. This is why Torah is true. It encompasses all extremes, from the top to the bottom. Emes is from Aleph bis Tov. Emes is from Aleph to Tov. From the höchste Madreges bis the niedrigste, from the highest levels to the lowest levels. Von ein Seit sagt man, on one hand we say, as Torah is oimek roim, that Torah is the depth of the height, the ultimate height, hecher von leidas hamaisa, that it is even higher than just to know what to do. Torah is higher than that. We're saying connected with Hashem. Hecher in yonim for yonim seine verbunden mit Asiya. It's higher than matters that are connected to doing. It's beyond doing. You learn Torah for the sake of Torah itself. But from the zweite side, but on the other hand, is do Torah oich in oimek tachas. Torah also comes to the lowest, the depth of the low, by ktanim shepturim mikol mitzvahs. Even by minors who are exempt from mitzvahs, still you have Torah over there. So you have no limitation. It comes from higher and higher and goes down to the lowest. And the Rebbe brings that this idea of the greatness of Torah is brought in the Gemara with regards to the laws which pertain to children. We say Yagdil Torah v'Yadir. And also, we talk about in another place where it's halacha. The Rebbe brings down. Das is Eucha Hezber if the Reif. This also explains the fact was me gefinnen dem Loshen Yagdel Teure V'Yadir. This language made Teure be big and increased in Zuik Tzovis Hofchim in two opposite extremes. In Einod state der Loshen Lagabim Lamdi Tenekes. In one place, this language is used with regards to children, teachers of children. We say the expression Yagdel Teure V'Yadir. The situation is that if you have a teacher coming into a place where already a teacher is, so normally we have a limitation. We say, hashavuos gavul, you can't come into somebody else's territory. You're going to take away his parnasa because the children go to, may leave the other teacher and go to you, so you can't compete. But we say, by Talmud Torah, no, Yagdil Torah v'Yadir. As thereby gate the tonkein hashavuos gavul. There's no infringing on somebody else's territory, taking away. Well, Yagdil Torah v'Yadir. Torah should expand. The more Torah, the better. Das is doch an Eifun von Reishis Tchilas Halimud. Here, so this law, we're saying to be increased Torah. Which Torah? Starting to learn Torah, we're learning with a child. Oimik Tachas. This is the depth, the deep of the lowest level, because we're not talking about extreme elaboration of Torah. We say Yagdil Torah v'Yadir in the most simplest way in teaching children. In a zweiten Ort, in another place in the Gemara, it talks about the signs of a fish that it is clean. So normally we know that a fish to be clean needs two signs. It needs the snapir and the kaskeses, the fins and scale. But the Gemara says, Zog the Gemara, if they have scales, they have fins. It can't be scales without fins. So why does the Torah have to say two simonim? They have scales. If it has scales, it has fins already. If it has scales, it has fins. So why does the Torah also have to say fins? Just say scales. It's caution. So to make it increase taka, it has, but to make it increase the Torah, should also have the fins. Here we're talking about Torah in itself, because this is not to know halacha. This is higher. You don't need to know the action. You know from kaskesa. We're just learning in Torah that for Torah's sake of Torah, we make it bigger. So you see, Yagdil Torah v'Yadir in the lowest level and in the highest form. In all ways of learning Torah, from the highest level to the lowest, Zochtman Yagdil Torah v'Yadir. We say, let the Torah increase and become strong. We take me. So that means it goes in all extremes. Das ist euch, was steht, Korev Hashem, l'chol korev. L'chol asher yikru v'emes. Hashem is called to close to all those that call him, to those that call him with truth. Truth, they call him with Torah. V'enemes ala Torah. And as in alle afanim l'chol asher yikru, everybody that calls him, mit emes, v'dos is Torah. Anybody who calls Hashem with truth, with Torah, is Korev Hashem. Hashem is close. Nehmt men atzmus. Over there you take the atzmus, the essence of Hashem. When you grab hold of the essence, you're holding on to everything. The etzem is umutun derselbe. The essence is always the same. And therefore, it doesn't matter, the chol koirov, if you're a child or you're learning the halacha, which is not lishma, you're still korev Hashem to chol koirov, because we're talking here about the essence. essence is there, whether in the study of the small child or the small of the higher level, and you're always getting the essence of Hashem. So the Rebbe ends with a bracha in Tezayin. The Eibishter soll geben. May Hashem give. Man soll ton in limud Torah. You should do in the study of Torah in alle Efanim, in all ways, und in ze alle, to know Torah, to do the mitzvahs, and for Torah itself. Und in ze alle beöfen für Yagdil Torah v'yadir, and all of them in a way of Yagdil Torah v'yadir, to increase the Torah and make it powerful. In all ways, was durch dem wird sein der Hilode, was kommt von Yom Chasanos, is a Matan Torah. That, in turn, gives the birth, comes from the wedding. Torah is the time of the wedding, Matan Torah. And the wedding would, and the birth will be B'doy Melatz Musi Yisbarich, because it's similar to the Atzmus. We marry Atzmus, we marry Hashem. The children are similar to Hashem. And we are going to push through the building of the world. And we'll turn the lower level. Also turn the upper level to make a dwelling place for Hashem. So we do this through the increase of Yagdil Torah v'yadir. And the Rebbe is going to discuss now that the special opportunity on Shavuos to learn Torah and increase because of the special connection to the Baal Shem Tov, David HaMelech, and Moshe Rabbeinu. Shavuos, Yud Zayin, Shavuos is as man mesugel to starken sich. It is a auspicious time. It's a good omen to strengthen yourself in opiten the takone von kvet kedushas mericham admur of my father the Rebbe belimud hashiurim, by learning the classes of Chumash, Tilim, and Tanya b'chol yom, every day, to learn the chitas. Chumash alle toga parsha Chumash and Pirush Rashi. Chumash means every day a section of the Chumash with the Rashi. Zontig bis Sheni, Sunday till Sheni, Montig bis Shlishi, Monday till Shlishi, Nazarite. Tehillim is alle tog every day, noch davening, after the davening, in the free, in the morning, a shiur, in Tehillim, a portion of Tehillim. There is ausgeteilt le ditak von Chodesh, as it's been divided according to the days of the month. The Rebbe says in Levush state wegen Zogen Tehillim fahren davening. The Levush he brings down states over there about saying Tehillim before davening. But das is noch an Inyan, that's a separate Inyan. The Takone for Kvet Kedushas Merichom Admuris, the institution that my father-in-law, the Rebbe, that he instituted, is to Zogen the Yom Tehillim noch an davening, to say the day of Tehillim after davening. Tanya is alle Tog Hashirim Tanya, Kvishenechel Klimei Hashona. Every day a section, a portion of the Tanya as it's been divided for the days of the year. So now we have the Chumash, the Tehillim, and the Tanya. So Chumash is doch gegeben geworden b'Chag HaShavuos durch Moshe Rabbeinu. So that is connected. Why is Shavuos as man mesugel for this? Because Shavuos is the time that the Torah was given Moshe Rabbeinu. So a portion of Chumash is definitely a good time to strengthen yourself. Tehillim is the Shaykh to David HaMelech, and Tehillim has a connection to King David. But Shavuos is his birthday and also the yahrzeit of David HaMelech. And Tanya is the Shaykh to Baal Shem Tov. Tanya has a connection to Baal Shem Tov, but Gilu Torah Baal Shem Tov is the Chassidus Chabad. The revelation of the teaching of Shem Tov is through Chassidus Chabad. And durch Tanya befrat. Ukiyudua, And as it's known, harem is in the Raskoma from Tanya. In the introduction of the Tanya, it says, "Uke'eis Yismach Yisrael begolis divrei kodshe." So the pasuk Yismach Yisrael means Jews rejoice, but here there's the hint for the Baal Shem Tov, Yisrael Baal Shem Tov, Yismach Yisrael begolis divrei kodshe, that his words are being holy words are revealed, that the Tanya reveals the words of the Baal Shem Tov. And Shavuos is the Yom HaIlula for Baal Shem Tov. That's the day of the Ilula passing of the Baal Shem Tov. Is the Chitzter Azman Besugel. So now it's a good, auspicious time, sich zu starken in die Shiurim, to strengthen yourself in these classes, in these study classes. Was Izan Shovim L'chol Nefesh. They are equal for everyone. Noisif, if there is chaskus in Shurim b'Torah b'chlal, this is in addition to generally strengthening yourself on Shavuos and Torah. Kol chad lepum shira delay, each one according to their measure. Was euch auf der Reuf is selbstverständlich, but also for that it's self-understood. Passing there is man Chag Shavuos. It's fitting the time of Shavuos. Zman matan terisenu, the time the Torah was given. Gantz Torah, everything was given them. So you're going to say Chumash, we understand, but what Tanya? But everything was given them. Matan Torah. Also, that which a studious student is destined to come up. And when you keep through keeping the takone of these classes, Vedzain der Chitas, that will be the Chumash Tilum Chitas, the fear. Rosh Tevis Chumash Tzilum Tanya, Elikim al Horim, as the pasuk said after Yaakov left and the sons killed the people of Shechem, and so it says they didn't chase him. Vayichitas Elikim al Horim, the fear of God was on these cities. Unes Vedzayin der Vayiso, and then they journeyed from there. As Forum Betoich Menucha, that we will journey out of, in a sense of relaxation, a relaxed way in Eretz Yisrael. Yisrael with the complete and true redemption. To Yaakov Avinu, as it was said to Yaakov, Nisa v'nelecha. That was Esav saying to Yaakov, let's journey and go. So, Bitu Asuv, Azevet of Takezain, so will be actually quickly in our days. That those who were saved, the salvation, they will go up to Mount Zion, to judge the Mount Esav, by through the study of Torah and observance of mitzvahs. And guarding the above mentioned takones to study. But the Mamshach Zay Mashiach Tzidkenu, he will bring down a righteous Mashiach L'mato Masoret Tvachim. Below 10 Tvachim here in this world, B'mheir B'yameinu, very quickly in our days. And this is Mesichas Chag hashavuos Tovshin Chai that we just learned in the second part of the Sikha of Shavuos in Chelek, in Chelek Beis. And now there is another Sikha that follows this one, which comes from a different Sikha.